Well, hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my overview of Subterrain Mines of Titan. For those not across it, I do overviews and reviews pretty much daily. An overview being where I have a look at the first 2 hours of a game, that being the Steam refund window. And if Steam reckons you can make your mind up in 2 hours, I kind of agree. I doubt 20 hours in you're going to change your mind after 2 hours in. And so this gives me an opportunity to test out a game, render a bit of a soft judgment, keep the video kind of punchy in under 10 minutes and put it up there for you to be aware of it. And through that soft verdict, it helps me kind of triage what I will and won't review going forward. Safe to say, right out of the gate, I love this game. I really am hooked like you wouldn't believe, and I will endeavor to find space in my busy schedule to review it in full. There's a bit of history with this game. This is actually, I don't want to say a sequel, it's not called Subterrain 2, and I followed it a little bit because I played this demo, I enjoyed the first game. Dare I say, I got a little peripheral hype train around this, which is something I tend to avoid doing kind of as a rule. So it's made by the same guys, and it's got some core principles from the first game, but it is very much its own game, and I don't believe it's in any way related to the first Subterrain. I could be wrong, but even if they are like actual sequels, it's very fringe. To give you an idea, the first Subterrain was a very different version of this top-down perspective, almost Hotline Miami. I believe it was like real time as well. This is clearly turn-based, more Stone Shard, but the broad strokes being that it is set in a situation where there is a permanency, a kind of background doom timer, which we can ruminate on, and I love them. I think there are people that get it and people that don't when it comes to doom timer games. But in the first game, the idea was that you sort of wake up, I think you're like a prisoner or something, bit of an amnesia start, same thing going on here, but you were stranded on, let's say, Mars. Again, this is all very off the cuff. Abandoned facility, mystery going on, monsters roaming around, and like a nuclear power plant's going to collapse and melt down, and you need to maintain the facility whilst trying to pull the thread and solve the problem. So it's very big picture. Like you have your mission laid out before you, but then you got to get all the little moving parts to get it going. Now this is doing the same sort of structure. You wake up with the same amnesia sort of thing. You're part of the first expedition onto Titan and mining it and sort of terraforming it. Something went wrong there, you don't know what's going on. The people that woke you up are the second expedition, and it would seem they're kind of mid-crisis of whatever screwed up the first expedition. It is ostensibly a mining operation, trying to dig down deeper into the caves, very Moria, very dwarves, very much my kind of thing, and essentially people are getting sick, the mine has had to be shut down, the base is cut off, and they're sort of trying to survive until help can arrive or resolve the situation. And from there it basically kicks off. Again, I mentioned Stone Shard. It has a lot of Stone Shard in it, which I love, but instead of it being sort of a man out for himself as a mercenary, not that there's anything wrong with it, but this would be the sort of big divergence of the kind of hardcore survival inventory management that you see in Stone Shard, where that's more about being a hired sword on the road, making ends meet. This is very much about the colony in a way. Like, I could use that sort of broad statement of the real character is the colony. Now, the first 2 hours is very slow burn. There's a lot of narrative. It's actually very involved, and I'm really, really hooked for something that is kind of CRPG-like. And I can bounce off some of them, especially when they're a bit more interpersonal driven. This has me really hooked because, again, without going into the plot too much, your character is the exception to the rule. You can go into the mine without basically being hurt, and you have this kind of living, breathing colony with all these different parts and departments and people all going about their business, doing their stuff, and you've even got like a timer in the corner. Well, not a timer, but more like a general resource thing for power, water, food for the entire colony. But you essentially have to delve deeper and do runs, but you have to keep this colony alive and thriving by interacting with the cast of members, sort of your own little frontier settlement, Deadwood style, and it's really, really interesting. Anyway, I'm clearly quite smitten with it. I really want to play more, but I can't right at this moment. But I will just say my thought on that broad concept, which seems to be the philosophy that's carried across. And it's almost niche, this idea of doom timers pushing games forward. I love them. And the idea is, here, from what I understand, the world kinda, every step you take, dare I say, every move you make, progresses the clock forward a step. and resources are getting used. The camp continues to function. Everyone's moving around doing their own things, but the monsters or the enemy or the situation is escalating at the same time as well. So I wouldn't call it a race against the clock, but I would definitely call it something that the world progresses as you move through it. And it really adds to what I enjoy personally, is more of being a small fish in a big pond. I'm not really big on the Neo Matrix Messiah complex kind of main character. I get that you are a main character in this and you have a few exceptions, but I also like the idea that you're going to have to pick and choose who you help, and you can't just win in every scenario. Other examples are things like the Dead Rising games, even to another point, XCOM games. And I understand some very noisy, angry keyboard warriors out there that will tell you that having these timers on these sort of games are a bad mechanic. And look, I can appreciate that they don't like it and they don't want that because they just want a comfortable experience. But I really do think that that sort of pressure that minimizes the player's footprint in the world only adds to immersion. I find no immersion in being Superman in amongst all the little people. I want to be one of the little people if I'm going for immersion. Another thought, and I don't want to spend too long on it, but there is interpersonal character drama going on in this, which I'm finding really quite well written and compelling, but it's secondary. And I can't help but wonder, I need to think on this thesis a little bit more, but I do wonder if the biggest gaslighting that modern writers have given us is telling us that character-driven drama is good. Don't get me wrong, I think it's important, but I don't think it's the first piece of the puzzle. This whole thing is issue-driven, is problems that need fixing. You have a facility falling apart from 100 different angles, from power systems to food supply and all that, and you need to triage and fix it. It is a high-level, complex problem, and it attracts my kind of mind. And I am just engrossed. And so there's heads of department that have bad blood between each other. And I'm going to have to navigate that, but I find that way more compelling as a secondary component to me trying to fix the situation. I will engage with interpersonal drama, but when you flip it around the other way, where the motivation is to try and get people to like you because, that does not resonate with me. I've touched on this briefly in the past, whether it's more of a masculine versus feminine mindset when it comes to narrative and story. I'm not sure though. Again, it's something that's been rattling around in my head and it's really on display here. So if you like fixing things, if you like solving problems primarily, and that is and having a narrative impetus derived from that trickles down, I'm using my hands, then this is for you. Anyway, it's quite brilliant. I'm going to find time to review it somewhere. I'm just kind of reviewing other things at the moment. Anyway, team, might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.